Our discussion with Sanjay Desai. This is the second part of a series, a two-part call series on sales and operations planning. Sanjay, can you give us an introduction to you about yourself?
Thanks, Justin. Hey, Sanjay Desai here, a supply chain professional who started a journey with Unilever in India plant as a warehouse blue-collar worker. Over the last 34 years that I worked in supply chain, I worked for some of the best organizations like Unilever, Aventis Pharmaceuticals, ExxonMobil, Apple Computer, Dell Global, S.H. Johnson, Thermo Fisher Scientific, and then Huntsman. Very happy to talk to you, Dustin, today. Thanks a lot.
So my question is it necessary for an organization to engage so many resources to implement S&OP processes? And can an organization embark on a similar process but with not so much exhaustive, so much work, and to achieve the same results?
Yeah, logically, that's a very correct question, Justin. And when I started doing this, many people, I'm sure the same question would have cropped up in everybody's mind. And if you look at historically, almost all the organizations they have various weekly meeting forums. And as you rightly said, some other weekly forums, right, like weekly sales call, weekly demand supply alignment call, MPS planning call, pricing forum, and many others. Now, if you look at it, all these meetings more or less try to achieve the same objective, but in an independent manner. And they are very selectively attended by the leadership team. So they choose and pick which meetings to attend and which meetings not to attend. Besides, all these weekly meetings are not integrated to each other, and hence they don't sustain over a longer period. And eventually, because they don't sustain, they become very mundane and they lose their essence in the organization. And that is exactly the problem. Whereas S&OP is way much more structured. It is very integrated across all the functions. It brings together everything under one umbrella. And it is able to take decisions and address KPIs which are outside in perspective, that is more customer facing. These weekly meetings, right, we burn a lot of resources, time and money, but we do not reap the benefits proportion to the capital deployed, whereas in S&OP, the benefits are absolutely there, and we'll take a look at it in the latter part of the interview today, Justin.
So which are the success factors of this process that an organization must follow to successfully implement it and sustain it long term?
Absolutely. It is so critical not to drop this process midway or not to lose the essence and have a sustainability, because it has definitive hard and soft benefits. Probably one of the first and the most important factor is support and an active participation from the commercial leadership as well as the cross-functional S&OP core team members. The leadership participation is absolutely mandatory, and if it is not signed up, then it is not possible to garner the support from cross-functional leadership, and then S&OP process becomes very ineffective. Second factor is S&OP core team should always remember that this is a strategic process which looks at the future business scenario. So it should be engaged accordingly, meaning it should not become a post-mortem or a mudslinging ground for cross-functional teams. While there always be a little amount of rear-view mirror driving, typically in like any weekly meetings, S&OP process is largely effective when it remains futuristic. So that's a key element of it. Then pre-preparation. Pre-preparation is the key, and participants should come prepared with their data and analysis. Here, the core team will align on an action plan, which is then communicated to the downstream teams. And the last factor is S&OP meeting should take decisions and provide directions for execution. So every S&OP meeting that is engaged, there should be an action, and then resultant outcome of this meeting should be instituted in the day-to-day operation by the supply chain team, finance team, and customer-facing function. Over to you, Dustin.
What are the benefits of engaging S&OP? And are these benefits quantifiable? And can the benefits, do they differ on factors like industry segments or product type?
Wonderful. Let's address the first question related to benefits. Yes, there are absolute hard benefits and soft benefits. Some of the examples of hard benefits does help organizations to improve the forecast accuracy, or at least reduce the bias, right? Either the positive bias or the negative bias. And the propensity or the resultant factor can be an improvement between anything between 15 to 30% improvement. Another benefit is you would have seen product launches normally don't get addressed, but because of S&OP process, all the product launches are addressed upstream very early and by all the functional leadership team, and that is a lot of success. So your product launches are done better, and almost 15 to 20% product launches are highly successful. Another benefit is inventory reduction. Companies who have embarked on a very successful S&OP and sustained over a longer period have indicated that they have managed to control inventory reduction and reduce inventories between a broad 7 to 15% and actually control the working capital expansion. Manufacturing organizations, they can control their downtime between 5 to 10% and increase their throughput. And all this put together actually gives an organization a bandwidth to increase their revenue to the tune of 5 to 7%. Now we must also remember that these benefits are realized by organizations who have successfully implemented S&OP and achieved a certain level of maturity. What it means is if you are in the first year of your S&OP process, all these benefits may not be realized so early, but it will kind of create a path for the success in the latter years. As the S&OP maturity goes up, you will start seeing the benefits coming through. Soft benefits, there are benefits which are very generic and they are not very specific to any industry type. They are regardless, Dustin. Some of them are, because of the S&OP process, it enhances your teamwork across multiple functions. You have multiple functions working on a monthly meeting, as well as there are sub-meetings which happen every week. And obviously that creates a lot of harmony and synergy. It also helps the organization to be more structured in the decision-making process and a downstream communication process. One of the benefits of S&OP is a very clear one set of numbers enterprise-wide between finance, supply chain, operations, and commercial. There is always a one set of numbers being followed for the whole year that keeps on changing a little bit month after month, but at least there is a lot of clarity. And it also gives you a sneak preview of the future numbers, which is what we call typically a window into the future for the organization. And the last benefit, S&OP creates tight linkages and it allows you to have a strategic plan versus your daily execution engine aligned at an organization level. Over to you, Dustin.
How can an organization determine the maturity of their S&OP process, and what are the steps the organization can take to improve maturity?
Yes, there are a couple of ways to do it. First one is to conduct a maturity assessment at least once in a year. Once in a year will help because you have a large data, you have a substantial time frame in front of you to gauge your results and also the maturity. Compare that analysis with the best-in-class organization's data. Secondly, organizations should perform a periodic audit and benchmark the audit results with the best-in-class company's data. Such data is available readily in the market with agencies as well as within the organization, and you can even approach chambers of commerce or some of the consulting organizations. These two exercises will provide a platform to make continuous improvements in the downstream execution process for the organization. To conduct an assessment is not very difficult. You need to answer about 10 to 12 questions. The answers for those questions will gauge how an organization process stacks up against the process maturity of best-in-class companies. Each question has a mark assigned, and sum total of all those questions marks are categorized into 4 levels of maturity. First one is developing, which is a very basic kind of a process, and an organization could be very new in the early stages. Number 2 level is called performing, meaning now you have a certain advancement in your S&OP, you have certain history, and the organization has started to gain some results. May not be so hard, but the soft results. Third one is the leading one, where now organization has reached a certain maturity where they really start getting even hard benefits. And the fourth one is the best in the class, which is within your industry segments. You are one of the best organizations who has a fully matured S&OP, which typically would take anything between 2 to 3 years for an organization to reach the best in class method. Over to you, Dustin.
Is it easy to implement this process? And can you talk about some of the common challenges that an organization might face?
Well, it is not definitely easy because it's not easy to implement a full-fledged S&OP cadence. More than the process, the cadence and the sincerity that it requires. It requires a lot of rigor at the leadership level, and that's the starting point, right? At the same time, it's not a rocket science. So if you have a good leadership, if you have a good mandate, and if you have a good core team, you can definitely do a good S&OP. More important is to understand that it requires the change management at enterprise level and also changing the way cross-functional teams work with each other. You have to be more collaborative rather than slugging at each other. It's not your way or my way. It's a common organizational way. Explain in other way, implementing S&OP is 60% change management, 30% process development, and 10% systems and tools. Some of the broad challenges that an organization may face to make S&OP successful are, as we said earlier, lack of senior leadership buy-in, lack of objective statement as a strategy statement at the beginning of S&OP implementation plan, and organizations penchant for one-size-fits-all planning. If you have one-size-fits-all, then you're going to have some bit of a problem in terms of executing your replenishment model. Then devil is in the detail. If S&OP is too detailed, then it will lose its effectivity. S&OP has to be at a high level, at a category level, and at a gross level. Another challenge is S&OP turning into post-mortem meeting. This happens almost all the time, Dustin. After a while, S&OP starts turning from a futuristic mode and strategic into post-mortem, looking at past month's performance and then plugging at each other actually. Then getting fixated on past performance, right? Like forecasting error. Teams typically take one forecasting error and debate it for a long time. And if the forecasting error is not actually the issue that you should be discussing, you should be looking at forecast bias, either positive and negative, and how to fix that. And the last challenge is not taking decisions. So you may have everything which is falling in place very well. But if you're not taking decisions and communicating the decision interaction and walking out of S&OPs, then it will be still ineffective. You won't be able to achieve the maturity that you want to achieve. Over to you, Dustin.
Can you give some examples of some of the best MNCs who have embraced this process and that have resulted in significant gains over some time?
Yeah, there are so many companies. And typically what comes into mind is the top Fortune 100. And if you peel the layers, there may be quite a lot of them. To my mind, what comes first is some of the really classic companies is Johnson & Johnson, a pharmaceutical multinational with 4 industry segments. And they run a classical S&OP, manufacturing and distribution differently. Cisco Systems, IT technology multinational with a very large product offering. And they still do a very good job of controlling their working capital, managing new product introductions, and they use S&OP very effectively. Mondelez, the food and confectionery giant. Slightly unknown player is Owens, Illinois, a glass manufacturer with over 30 manufacturing plants in US, Europe, and Asia, with a huge product offering in the glass portfolio. They do a classical job of using S&OP very well. One should remember that these organizations have multiple divisions and multiple customer segments in various geographies. But still, these organizations, they have complexity as well. But they nurtured and use their S&OP over a period of time to overcome their challenges. And they use S&OP very effectively.
Thanks again for sharing today, Sanjay.
Yes.
Did we cover all the points that you wanted to make?
Yeah, just concluding remarks.
Oh, okay, yeah. So,
successful S&OP. For a successful S&OP process, it's a journey of continuous improvement, right, that allows an organization to plan strategically but execute tactically. That is the key word, right? You need to plan strategically in S&OP but execute tactically and locally or regionally. A true S&OP process which is implemented and executed enterprise-wide will reap benefits consistently till it's matured to a best-in-class model. And to recap the whole discussion of the last 2 parts in a very brief way, S&OP is a 3-pronged approach to achieving excellence. And what are those 3? 1, make it easy to implement. 2, make it easy to execute. And 3, make it easy to sustain. That's all, Dustin, for today.
Sanjay?